morning, grade 8. Today, Miss, inshallah, we will apply the linear system and methods of solving linear system on real life problems. We will see how to connect the solution or the process of solving linear system with problems from life, and when to choose the appropriate one according to the facts, according to the question about what. Okay. But before we start, let's revise together the three methods of solving linear system. We said that the three methods that we have taken to solve linear system are the graphing, the substitution, and the elimination. Now, in graphing, actually, when do I need to graph? When I will look for the graph of the two, linear or of the two equations to find out the intersection point. When the intersection point is important for me to be to find it out from a graph. Actually, when you want, let's say to imagine or visualize or a visual display of when you want to estimate the solution. Now, it's important to know, I always look for graphs if I want to estimate, if I don't want exactly answer. Why must estimate? Because actually my values are changing with time. My values are changing with according to the number of items I will sell, I will buy. Okay, always Miss graphs is connecting with economics, with business, with investments. Okay. Now, when I will use substitution, when one equation is already solved for one of the variables, okay? When it's easy to solve for one of the variables. So, if it's easier for me to find out or to substitute one of the variables in terms of the other variable, it means that you will take the form of the slope-intercept form. Okay, of y, and when y equals mx plus c, and take it and substitute it in the other equation and continue solving the equations. I can use the substitution method. Elimination, when I can use it, when one of the coefficients of the one variable are the same or opposites. Okay, are the same or are the same of the other and opposite. Now, when you have standard form equations, both of the equations are written in the standard form, the best method or the best method of solving a linear system will be the elimination. Okay, standard form, ax plus by equals c. Now, let's start talking about the problems. Now, I have actually two problems in this lesson. I want you to let's say, recognize or to find them out and understand them, and recognize that when I see this problems from this kind, okay, I will choose this method. Okay. In problems of finding a break-even point, what's a break-even point? The break-even point is actually for business is the point at which the income, okay, the income equals the expenses or the outcomes. Okay, it's very important when the income equals the expenses, or actually we can say that when the graph shows you the intersection of two lines. The two lines are actually connected money. Now, it's very important to note that in problems of graphing for business, you always have the y-axis represents money. It represents always money, okay, dollars. Now the x-axis, sometimes it represents time, sometimes it represents number of items. It's, it's changing. Maybe it will be changing according to the what have been asked to do in the question, to find out in the question. But y-axis always represents money, so always y equals the equation of y's. Actually, it tell you about the cost. Okay, now graphing the expenses of company versus the income, the break-even point is represented by the intersection of the two graphs. So actually, the break-even point is the intersection of the two graphs, as you can see here. Okay, now look here at the two areas, let's say the yellow area and the white area. You will notice, Miss, when you reach the break-even point, starting from the break-even point, you will start getting money or making money. Okay, now before it, actually, you just have to pay. Okay, and you can notice that the value, the Y value represent dollars receives as income as well as dollars spent on expenses. Okay, so y-axis always shows money, and the x-axis is different according to the facts or the information you have in the question. So if I'm asking you to find out a break-even point, immediately go to the solve system by graphing. What's the relationship of income to expenses before the break-even point is reached? What do you think? What's the relationship here? If you can see here, what can you find the relationship here of the incomes? You can see that is less than the amount of the expenses. You can notice that the income, look, Miss, here, now the income is represented by the blue line, while the outcomes represented by the red, or the outcomes, or actually the expenses, okay, what you have to pay is represented by the red line. You can notice that income, or what you will get from your business or investment, is less than what you will get, what you have to pay. Okay, now after the break-even point, what you can see, the amount of the income becomes so it becomes greater than or more than the amount of the expenses. So you can see that starting from the break-even point, you start getting profits or money. Now, how it will be the questions about this? Let's say, for example, carpenter makes and sells rocking chairs. The material for each chair costs 22 and $0.5 or 50 cents. Now, notice that they say for each chair. So actually, when they say per chair, for each chair, it means that if you want to find the total, you have to multiply the price of each chair by the number of chairs. Okay, now the chair sells for 75 each. Again, word each or per each tells you that you have to multiply this value with, the variable you use it to represent the chair. Here I want, for example, to represent the chair by variable x. Okay, now always the cost you will see in break-even point, as I said, you will see always costs. You will see dollars. So the cost, as we have said, is represented by y. Okay. If the carpenter spends $420 on advertising, now notice this is what, Miss? This is, there is no pair after it, no each after it, so you can say this is a constant. This money is constant, okay? On advertising, how many chairs must she sell to break-even point? Now, as I said, X always is the number of chairs, okay? And why the amount is spent? The amount is spent, okay, so we are talking about amount, it means the money you have to spend, while the number of the chairs that will be X. Now, and of course, since I will have two equations of Y, so I'm talking about the income will outcome, okay, or the expense. Now, will expense, who can find or try to find the equation? Actually, it will be expense, you have to pay if you want to make the chair, okay, you have to pay for the material, you have to pay 22 and 50 or $0.5 for each. So you will multiply it by X, as you can notice here, plus, as you can see here, plus the constant money which you will pay it when you open, for example, your your shop, or when you open it, you have to pay $420 as an advertisement, okay, to make advertisements about your project. Now this is the expense. What about the income? If you pay it, what you will get, actually for every chair you will get $75. So Y equals the income, Y equals 75x. X is the number of the chair. For every chair you will get $75. Now we want to know when the income equals the expense. So when I will start getting a profit or money from my work or my project here. Okay, so when I will reach the break-even point, when I will find out the intersection of the income line and the outcome or the expenses line. Okay, so this is two equation system. Okay, I will solve it using, maybe you will solve it using the substitution. Now, if you can write it, okay, it's, of course, it's much easier for you to solve it by substitution if you find out the two equations. And to visualize it, you have to, you need to visualize the graph, but you will not, graph it. Okay, you will just visualize the graph and know the break-even point, where it will be the intersection point after you solve it by substitution. Okay, so let's, as you can see here, we substitute in instead of Y here 75x. Okay, then here I find out two equations. Okay, now I subtract because I want to regroup. Okay, 75x minus 22.5x, then it's 52.5x divided by 52x. So as you can see, x equals 8. What x represent? What means it represent the number of chairs. So as you can see here, the carpenter should or must sell 8 chairs to start getting incomes. After the chair, after 8 chairs, he can get profit from his investments. Okay. Now you know how to solve this, right? Now you have one equation with one variable. Now let's go to solve mixture problems. If you find, or if you have a problem that they are talking about actually chemistry, they want you to find out problems of finding out the solution, the amount, the mixture of of two solution of mixtures, okay, of let's say chemistry solutions. Actually we will use we will form and use the elimination method. I will talk about this in the second video, because actually 13 minutes is enough for one video to be recorded.